Everyone, welcome to your Danville City Commission special called meeting for this evening, Monday, October the 11th, 2021. It is 5:31 in the evening, and I will call us to order. Commissioner Cottle will not be with us this evening, we don't think. I ask that we be led in prayer by Commissioner Jenny Holland.
Okay, let's bow our heads. Let us pray. We humbly come before you, Lord, and ask that you guide and direct our hearts today and our motives to make the best decisions for the most citizens in Danville. We pray dearly for the families that have lost loved ones once again, the now 80 or more Boyle County residents that have passed away due to COVID. And we continue to pray for strength and endurance and good health for our first responders, healthcare workers, and the entire community. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, ma'am. If you'll stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Since I've not heard from anyone, I will assume that the agenda meets everybody's approval. And with that, we'll move right into hear the public. This is the public's opportunity to address the commission on any item that is on tonight's agenda. Later on, there'll be the same opportunity for any item that is not on tonight's agenda. So the floor is open. Ms. Lewis, you may be first.
Folks, I'm here to talk to you about the cemetery. That's why you usually see me. First of all,
Ms. Lewis, you want to move that microphone down to you? And this is Gail Lewis.
I'm sorry. I should have introduced myself. I'm Gail Lewis. At this time, I'm chairman of the cemetery committee. I would like to read to you from an excerpt from material that the Lexington Cemetery puts out. And if you're not familiar with the Lexington Cemetery, you should get to be. It's one of the most beautiful places in this nation. It is truly the epitome of what a cemetery should be. According to their material, a cemetery is a place of peace, serenity, and beauty, a place for families to grieve and find consolation in the loss of their loved ones. Folks, Danville Cemetery is not. What it is not is a recreation facility, an athletic training ground, or an outdoor theater, or a place to sunbathe. And we have had all of those things take place at Bellevue. Fortunately, people are much more respectful of Hilldale. We don't have nearly as much improper activity at Hilldale. So I appreciate the people that use Hilldale, but we've got problems at Bellevue. The city and county together spent millions of dollars to build Millennium Park, which includes a beautiful dog park where you can take your dogs and let them run for acres, get all the exercise they need. They're not knocking tombstones over. They're not defecating and urinating on grave sites. It's a great place to take your dog. But why is it just a little bit inconvenient for some people to drive a mile out of town to do that? They have to use Bellevue Cemetery. Have any of you ever had a dog run through a graveside service? I have. Have you ever sat through a graveside service where dogs barked louder than the minister? I have. Have you had a service interrupted by runners running through the park, the cemetery, like it was a park? I've seen that too. Have you ever stooped to pull weeds around your parents' grave, and when you stood up, you had dog poop on your knee? I have. Have you ever tried to clean dog urine off of my monument? Folks, it can't be done because that stuff stains. It just can't be done. I really care about our cemeteries. I've given my heart and soul for 17 years to help protect our cemeteries in Danville. I have many generations of my loved ones there, including my husband, my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my sister and my brother-in-law, and it hurts to see the place so disrespected. We have a man, a citizen, I assume, who drives a pickup truck late in the afternoon. Turns out 2 huge dogs. I don't know what they are, but they're almost the size of a small pony. Lets them run wild anywhere they want to go. When he was approached by another citizen, he was told he was threatened with bodily harm. This happens more than you know. We had a gentleman come to a cemetery committee with a list of 10 license plate numbers of people who opened the doors and let their dogs run free. When we turned it over to the proper authority, we were told couldn't be enforced because there was nothing to enforce. Folks, that's just wrong. It needs to be noted as well that Bellevue is a national cemetery. If you drive up the street, there's a sign there that says Bellevue National Cemetery. If you get online and do a little research, you'll find that in a national cemetery, there are no animals allowed other than service dogs. So every day we allow dogs in our cemeteries, we are out of compliance with a national statute. Think about that one for a while. Danville, the city of firsts, the city of lasts when taking care of our cemeteries. It's taken me 17 years of begging and groveling and pleading to get the commission to agree to put shelters in both cemeteries. We are the city of first is the city of last here, because even Perryville, Parksville, Junction City, Lancaster, Stanford, Harrodsburg, they all have shelters to provide solace for families in need. Took me 11 years to get the streets paved. We were almost driving on gravel before the city agreed to use some leftover paving from the city streets to clean up some of the streets in the cemeteries. Folks, that's bad. We didn't even have decent trash cans. We used old rusty barrels for many years. And I finally was able to work with Donna Fetcher, who was the queen of recycling, to get some grant money to put decent trash cans. That should not be such a chore, but it was. I have picked up mountains of trash. You said you were going to provide bags for dog waste. That's just something else that would have to be picked up. Because I have picked up everything in those cemeteries, from dirty baby diapers to whiskey bottles, beer cans, and things that are unmentionable here. It's all there to be picked up. It's really sad that people call. You don't hear these calls because, fortunately, most of them call me, and I'm, in a lot of cases, able to talk them down off of a ledge and calm their fears and their problems with Bellevue. But we have a responsibility when we sell a plot in either cemetery, we have promised to take care of that family and their loved ones forever. That's what perpetual care means, and that's what we sell. And it doesn't mean allowing dogs to poop all over their loved ones. Sometimes I feel like there's not really a need to have a cemetery committee. We don't evidently serve a function because everything we recommend is disregarded. We meet once a month, but that doesn't mean anything. Let's face it, the cemeteries are forgotten and ignored by this city, this group, and the powers that be. It takes a real problem before something ever gets done. There again, you must remember we sell perpetual care. I really, really care about our cemeteries. I've done all I can to make them better places, more beautiful places, and more meaningful places. And I'm really tired of arguing and begging for your crumbs. and so I quit. You can consider this my resignation, effective immediately. And these are the members of my committee, who are great people.
Ms. Lewis, I'm gonna let you know, I'm the one that straightens out Hillendale.
I know, and I appreciate it, believe me.
Anyone else? Ms. Ryan?
I don't,
And we are in receipt of your letter.
I don't think I can add to what she has said because I have seen all of that. And it breaks my heart to see it with our loved ones buried there. And I don't know if you have loved ones buried there or not, but it's very sentimental to me. And all I can say is I don't feel like, nor do I want to be a dog policeman. And I don't think that our police force have time to take calls and come up there and have someone to pick up the dog waste. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. McGee?
Probably don't need the microphone, but Gail summed up everything pretty good. And I think you all made a mistake. You got a beautiful cemetery that you're getting ready to turn into a golf park. And with that, I resign too. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. Move right on to item 1, which is the Boyle County Health Department COVID-19 update. Mr. Blevins, we're glad to have you. Please bring us some good news for a change.
Hopefully, that's what we're going to do. Always appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all for just a few minutes about anything that I'm seeing or what we're going through. I'll give you a little idea right off the bat of where our cases were. On September 10th, for that week leading up to that, we'd had 219 cases. September 17th, that week, we'd had 221. But here's what happened since then. September 24th, we had 169 for that week. October 1st, we had 101, and then the week of October 8th, we were down to 70 cases. So definitely, you know, with the trends that we've seen around Kentucky and around the United States and somewhere around the world, you can see a trend that for right now, we do have a downward trend going. That's a positive thing because obviously we were on the other side of that trend for quite a while here during the summer. So glad to see that. It would be great to just say, hey, that's how it's going to be, that we're trending that way. But with the variants on this, you can probably expect there'll be another version of a variant at some point, and we'll deal with it, and we'll go up and down, and that might be how we look at this for a little while. Just a little bit of numbers to give you an idea. Our vaccination rate in Boyle County has increased. That's a good thing. Right now, we're at about 62-ish%, you know, give or take a little bit. Kentucky is right about that same amount. I think Woodford County is still the tops with 79, right around 79%, and there's still some counties maybe in the middle 30s. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we rank as far as vaccination status. The cases that, and we've had a lot of talk about this in the media ever since school started and what those look like. I'll give you a little idea of the, and I call them kids. I know some of them are young adults, but from the age of 0 to 10, since we started this pandemic in March of 2020 until now, the overall, or the percentage of the cases, positive cases we've had for age 0 to 10 has been about 6%. 11 to 20-year-olds, 11%. Now, since August 1st, those same age groups, and I'll show you the jump in that, the 0 to 10-year-olds went from 6% to 14% of our cases that we've had since August 1st. And the 11 to 20-year-olds have gone from 11% to 18% of the cases. So you can see, I mean, it's obvious where a lot of those cases have been. And what that looks like for our younger people as they've been back in school and trying to, you know, continue that positive thing of being in school every day and being able to do that, which is so vital to them. and what they're looking at. A lot of what we're trying to do at the health department right now is just get people to understand the difference between third dose and booster and when it's appropriate to do that, and people who fit into the immunocompromised or if they're having some other treatments, trying to do education on that. And if you've seen our Facebook post, you'll just see, I just stole it right from Lexington, from the Fayette County Health Department. They have a great graphic that's on our Facebook post. It just lays it out for you on the Pfizer, Moderna, what that looks like. So definitely, if people are asking you questions, definitely send them to that, because it's one of the best ones I've seen. Continuing the wash your hands, social distance, mask when needed or required, all those things are still as important as they were. And obviously vaccination, which is a key part of what we're trying to do. We're continuing to do COVID every day and work on that. Our contact tracing team is doing that. But I'll tell you, the last couple of weeks and these next 3 or 4 weeks, we are pretty swamped just trying to get as many flu shots as we can. We're working on the schools this week. We go to them because we know it's easier. They're busy, and if we can go to them and they can walk in their own building and get that shot, and that helps them, that's what we're trying to do. So that's what our focus is right now. Hopefully our trend will continue on the downward side, and we'll see how it goes over the next several months. But any information anybody can put out about any of this information is good. That helps us a lot. Any questions from you guys?
I have a comment.
Sure.
I appreciate your participation in the Women's Network group
Oh, yeah.
about what we learned from COVID with Dan McKay. I learned a lot from that, and that really got a lot of good information out.
Good.
And I appreciate the communication you've put out about shots. It's really helped a lot of people, so just good communication. and
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions, comments? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Item 2 is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting for September the 27th. Do I hear a motion to approve or amend?
I'll move for approval of the minutes from 9/27/21.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry, Commissioner Holland. I would ask for either clarification, addition, and that is on item 7, when we talk about the fiscal year authorized position list revision proposal. It doesn't mention in here what position, and I think it should. And I would offer that as either a clarification or an amendment, whatever pleases the commission.
Do we
Mayor,
need,
there's a memorandum that was prepared by the HR director, and it wasn't a single position, but rather a list of proposed changes. And so perhaps it could be referenced by addendum or attachment or something of that
That'd be
nature.
fine. I just look at this and think, if somebody reads this 6 months from now, they're gonna understand the detail and the intent. I'm okay with that, if y'all are okay with that.
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 3 is the appointment of Cassidy Cheatham to Urban Renewal, and her term will expire on 10/31/25. Ms. Rader, anything you want to add about her?
I just have the name from the board chair. I don't have any background or anything on her.
Okay. Well, this is one of those committees that's hard to staff. So what's your pleasure, board?
I move to approve the appointment.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the appointment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 4 is the recommendation of Leslie Hackworth to the Beautification Committee. Again, her term will expire October 31, 2025. Ms. Hackworth's children own the UPS store out at Skywatch Drive, and she's done a beautiful job with the flowers there. She also has an advanced degree in horticulture.
So moved.
And she was sourced by Ms. Nash.
So move for Mrs. Hackworth's appointment.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Terry, thank you. Discussion?
Could we just have a little bio like we have in the past when we make these appointments?
So noted.
Thank you.
Anything else? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 5 is the joint appointment, which we would make ours, and then the county will hopefully affirm it in their appointment tomorrow. And this would be to appoint John Roush as chair of the Economic Development Authority as the joint appointment between the city and the county. His term would also expire October 31, 2025. For those that don't know, John is the retired president of Center College, and I think personally, I think he'd be a fine leader from the get-go here. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Terry, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion will carry. Item 6 is resolution number 2021-10-11-01. This is the approval of a renewal of a line of credit through Farmers National Bank. Mr. Coffey?
Thank you, Mayor Commissioners. You have in front of you Resolution 2021-10-11-01. Simply authorizes the execution of an extension of the line of credit as described. In an emergency situation, this could be utilized to aid cash flow, and it has been used one other time many years ago, probably 15 years ago. It was actually used. Other than that, it's simple annual renewal.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll move for approval of Resolution 2021-10-11-01.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second?
Commissioner Holland, thank you. Discussion? This is an annual thing. It is $700,000 line of credit at 3.25%, if and when we ever tap it.
Hopefully, we never have to.
Yeah.
That is correct.
No more questions or comments. I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 7 is the first reading of ordinance number 1978 with respect to revising the prohibition of dogs in cemeteries. Do I hear a motion for the first reading?
I'll move for approval of first reading of ordinance number 1978.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Holland, thank you. We are in discussion, if there is any.
I've not met Miss Lewis before. Thank you for your service over the years. I wish we could have heard from the cemetery committee at former meetings. Okay, because, you know, I made my decision based on numbers, and I did ask for some numbers, I know from the city manager. I was neutral. I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to penalize 99.9% of people for the small percent that were not following the rules.
There are very few people who actually walk their dogs up there, and it's the vast majority
Are we
of
supposed to be
people
talking?
No.
who just
Okay.
allow their dogs to run rampant.
Yeah, we're supposed to talk with them
Right.
Yeah.
ourselves.
Right.
All right? Okay.
The fact still remains, that's why we built the dog park.
So I was just making that comment.
Mr. Mayor, would it be appropriate at this time to make a motion to table this? This will be the third meeting we've dealt with this, and every time we meet, we get new pieces of data. So I'd like to move to just table this thing and put a request out to citizens who are concerned about this to reach out and make contact with us. I've had several to call me. My home number is still listed in the book. I know it's hard to find a book, but I'd like to hear from people because every time we meet, we hear a different version of what's going on. So I move to table this and give us a chance to collect more data.
Well, let me back up, because in order to do that, Commissioner Holland at least, and/or Commissioner Terry would need to reverse your first or second.
I'm okay with tabling it, but at some point, we have to make a decision.
Right.
We've
Okay.
made two.
So a less decision next time. It's, yeah.
So with that, Commissioner Atkins has made a motion. Is there a second to Commissioner Atkins' motion?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Well, once again, it's 50/50. You either enforce banning dogs or you enforce cleanup. I've heard from tons of people this week just really for walking in the area. So it'll be good to continue to collect some ideas. Thank you.
I'll remind you again,
Can-
that's why we have a dog park. And remember, it is a national cemetery.
Any further comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of,
Can I ask a question? It's a question about questions.
yes.
When do we ask our questions? Because I have some questions.
Now you have questions. And that we're
Well,
in
I
discussion.
have questions about cemeteries in general, and again, we were told that this was the recommendation from the cemetery committee, and now the cemeteries committee is saying that they weren't aware there was anything going on, so
No,
that's conflicting. And then it is our, I'm sorry, Ms. Lewis, please. Is the Lexington Cemetery private or public?
The Lexington Cemetery is private.
Right, so that's,
It's open to the public, but it is a private facility.
it is privately operated,
That is correct.
yeah. Do we know how many public versus private cemeteries there are? Is there any way to know that? So we
I'm
could
not aware of a
maybe
database that would tell me.
I just
that.
want to compare apples to apples. Because-
The only other private that I know of is the, what is it, Memorial Gardens on Stanford Avenue. That's private. That's privately owned.
Right, so I guess I would like to see if there are other public cemeteries that we can compare to. Because we really can't compare to private cemeteries. And I just don't think we should. That's a whole different ballgame. So I'm looking at you, Mr. Dexter, but Earl is taking notes.
No, we'll do that. And to be clear, just because there seemed to be a little bit of confusion, we did not track how many complaints we got. When we formed our opinion, there was a series of calls we got within 1 week, probably a handful from a handful of different people. Time passed, we had a follow-up call asking what was recommended off of that, right? So that was the limit, and that was the motivating factor for us to originally bring it up.
What
right?
was,
So-
what was your recommendation?
The comments that we got were in line with the National Cemetery comment and the preventing of defecation on property by an animal. We will say that we don't have control over deer and other animals that enter the facility, and that does happen. So out of respect to that, we offered that with the only way we immediately saw to resolve it, but it's a judgment call for the commission ultimately. And so we would yield to you all and try to provide information that you are asking for, which we believe we are understanding that you're asking to see what other cemeteries do with this policy.
Public cemeteries.
Correct. Comparable cemeteries, right.
And I want to ask Commissioner Terry, is it your understanding that the cemetery committee requested what? I thought I understood you say cemetery committee was,
The cemetery, we were informed that the cemetery committee was bringing forth this recommendation to not allow dogs.
okay.
But that's not the point. The point is, Ms. Lewis said they didn't know anything was going on. So if that, so that makes me question, so did we get a recommendation from the cemetery committee, or did we get a recommendation from staff? Was it both? I'm just confused on, somewhere there seems to be a disconnect. And, you know, it doesn't matter what the recommendation actually was. I just want to know if there was a disconnect and somebody was out of the loop.
I was under the impression that it was talked about with the cemetery committee, which is evidenced by their strong opinion tonight, which is one of the reasons why it was confirmed for me, maybe that was the path to go. You all don't have to take the advice of the cemetery committee or any other committee that you have. You can make your own mind up also. So therefore,
Right.
you know, you all choosing to go a different direction doesn't surprise us fully. That has happened before.
I just
Right.
wanted to clarify that broad statement that was made that indicated the cemetery committee was not involved, when I think they have been. So, you know, here's where I am. If it were 100% a military cemetery like Camp Nelson, I would say yes, no dogs. But it isn't. It is mostly private citizens, and it is a public space. So the laws about leashes and picking up waste apply to public space. But we're tabling it, so I guess it doesn't really matter.
Well,
I hope we
are-
can compare
We are, but
to public
I'd like, how do we want to go about discussing this? Is now the appropriate time? Is next meeting? How do we want to discuss this?
Well, I would like, based on what has been said tonight, for the cemetery committee, members who are no longer on the cemetery committee, to have a cemetery committee meeting and bring a formal proposal from the cemetery committee to us, and then we can balance that suggestion along with the suggestions that we've heard from the public, so that we can get this is not going to sound right, but we need to get the dogs off the table. I walk in Millennium Park, I bet you 5 out of 7 days every week. The dog park in Millennium Park probably handles about 30% of dog traffic in Millennium Park. People walk dogs in Millennium Park all around the track on leash. And I think they do an excellent job of picking up, cleaning up after themselves. I've not stepped in anything recently. I've not seen very much recently, but don't think because we have a dog park in Millennium Park that takes care of all the dogs walking in Millennium Park, because it does not. And then my first child was a dog, and we walked Bellevue Cemetery in Danville quite a bit. And since this issue has come up, I have made several little trips to Bellevue without a dog, but I'm just trying to do my homework. I always promise that when I cast a vote, it will be based on the information that I have at that time, but the information keeps shifting on me. So I'll give it another 2 more weeks.
Mayor, can I give a quick little refresher and just to frame the issues I think that are before you as a body?
Certainly.
2 meetings ago, there was a recommendation brought to you, based on my understanding, that the cemetery committee was recommending a revision in their rules and regulations to prohibit dogs to be in the cemetery. We have 2 foundational documents. We have an ordinance that says there shall be no dogs in the cemetery. We also have rules and regulations. The ordinance has never changed. The ordinance has always said no dogs are allowed in the cemetery. What has changed have been the rules and regulations, which at different times that has waffled back and forth, but there's been never an ordinance revision. In this last discussion where there was an issue, my understanding that was discussed by the cemetery committee, making the recommendation that the rules and regulations say, match the ordinance and say, no dogs in the cemetery. That was brought to you and it passed. Upon the last meeting, it was brought as a topic of discussion by amendment of the agenda, and the commissioners by 4-0 vote decided to revisit the issue, allow dogs by rules and regulations. Based upon that, you have certain documents in front of you. One was an ordinance revision to make it match the rules that says dogs are permitted in the cemetery if leashed. Also is a rules and regulation amendment which would reverse what you did 2 meetings ago so as to allow dogs in the cemeteries if leashed. And then finally, so as to make it not a criminal matter, but rather a civil issue to be fined by code enforcement, there is another ordinance amendment which amends the first chapter of our organization and allows citation officers through code enforcement to issue fines for violations of the rules. That does not exist now. If someone violates some rule in the cemetery, they have to be prosecuted in district court. So we really have 3 things before us. We have an ordinance that has never been changed that prohibits dogs in your cemeteries. We also have rules and regulations that has gone back and forth through the years. And we have a general administrative ordinance which would allow your code enforcement officers to issue citations, civil penalties for various offenses in your cemeteries. So those are the issues that are before you, and the timeline, as I understand them to be through my review of the documents and staff reports. I don't know if that's helpful, but.
Yeah,
It's
that
very
frames it.
helpful. Yeah.
You want to say something, Merle?
No, I mean, just to expand on that, the idea originally is we need some clarification. The confusion with enforcement was real because we did have conflicting text, and then subsequently it was the idea of using a code enforcement officer eases the pressure to have a police officer out there. And so overall, you're cleaning up your process and you're aligning your process around one specific rule one way or another. And that's just simply the clarification that we were asking.
And whether or not you revise the rules and regulations and the ordinance to either allow or prohibit dogs, I still would recommend the passage of item number 8, which is 1979, which would allow any violations in the cemetery to be enforced by code enforcement officers and the issuance of citations.
Okay. So we had an initial first and second, and then the first and second agreed to rescind their first and second. Commissioner Atkins made a motion, seconded by Commissioner Holland, thank you. And so we've had that discussion. Is there any more comment, any more discussion?
Would Commissioner Atkins like to rescind his table motion? Okay.
My table motion just to simply say to the cemetery committee, help us resolve this. You know, at first I was,
We have tried.
well,
I know back in the day, they used to lock the gate, and they don't do that no more. We have been through that.
a lot of people tried to get this resolved. And I'm just simply saying, after hearing the presentation tonight, that the cemetery committee did not agree to bring us a recommendation as required. I think that's what I have to say. And I'll give them the opportunity to do that. And I'm also giving you the opportunity to have research review what our other government-owned cemeteries doing along this. And then the big question for me is that,
May I make a comment, Mr. Red?
No.
Hold on. Let
No.
him continue, please.
if I prohibit dogs in the cemetery, that means all of us who walk with dogs are, I'm talking about just taking them down, right? I'm sorry. I I can't decide.
Well, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further conversation on that? Chair will call for a vote. All in favor of Commissioner Atkins' vote, say aye.
To table it.
To table it,
Aye.
aye. You seconded it.
Aye.
No, you vote however you want.
Yeah, you don't have to vote for it. Yeah. Second, just gives us a chance to discuss.
I'd rather finish it now.
All opposed?
No.
Item 8 is the first reading of ordinance number 1979, which as as Councilor Dexter has alluded, it would allow code enforcement to be the enforcing entity here. Do I hear a motion for ordinance number 1979?
I'll move for approval of ordinance number 1979. Sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Holland, thank you. We are in discussion.
And Mayor, again, as previously stated, this is just an ordinance that allows code enforcement officers to issue citations for violations in the cemetery. And the fine schedule is listed there and underlined for violations that aren't contested. It's $100 for the first offense, $200 for the second offense, $400 for any offense thereafter. And then if the citation is contested before a hearing in the Boyle District Court, the fines are increased by $50 in each category.
Any discussion further? Seeing none,
And
Chair.
Mr. Dexter, passing this tonight just simply says that regardless of how the other decision is arrived at, we still will have this to prevent violations of being on a leash or being in the
That's
cemetery at
correct.
all.
Any violation of city ordinances in the cemeteries can be enforced by citation
All right.
upon passage of this ordinance.
All right.
But it's not just about dogs,
It's about any rule violation in the cemetery.
any violation,
Yes.
which would be,
Well, the main one stated about ordinance is about dogs. So the only ordinance that I remember offhand, and I don't have the entire ordinance in front of me, the only strict prohibition was having dogs. So that is going to be the main item. But theoretically, you could add other rules and regulations by ordinance to the cemetery section of our code book and have the same protection.
well, it kind of sounds like to me that maybe people have not been calling the correct people and following the correct protocol when they do see violations. So the proper thing to do is if you see drugs or people doing inappropriate things in the cemetery, drugs obviously, I guess, would be 911, but it would be to call our 238-1220 number and report it, and not anyone else, or the chair of the cemetery committee.
Right.
I mean, that's the proper protocol that
Correct.
we kind of need to talk about.
Right. The easiest thing to do, if you just have a general question, is contact City Hall. And certainly cemetery committee or committee chairs often receive calls related to the subjects that they're chairs of. But for us to track that and guarantee follow-up on it,
Right.
unless we hear about it, that can be a challenge. And
Unless
we
it-
have faced that obstacle for a number of years. An important thing for city staff is to try to work towards maintaining a good, strong relationship with the committee as a whole and make sure those things are discussed at cemetery committee meetings or whichever committee meeting you're having.
Along with, as long as codes is aware.
Correct.
Let me
And-
ask, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and they can just make that part of their report to the cemetery committee or to us or whatever. But it's really important for citizens to call the appropriate person when things are happening that shouldn't be happening.
Counselor Dexter, so let's say that you've got somebody, first, second, or third offense, doesn't matter, pick it, and let's say a citation is issued. what is that person's process from that point? What is that person's recourse if they choose to contest it?
Well, they're entitled to a hearing by our code ordinance if that's what they so desire. So they could either pay the fine
Right?
or they can contest it, where they would receive all due process rights of a normal hearing.
And if they contest it, who do they contest it? What's the body? For example, we have a parking body, you know. If you
In this
want to
case-
contest your parking ticket, you have a body to go to.
In this case, it's Boyle District Court.
Boyle.
District Court. But
Well, and
it's a civil penalty, not a criminal misdemeanor.
It goes to district court instead of circuit court.
Well, I mean, you can have criminal or civil violations in district court, and based on the monetary amount, it would be in district court here.
All right, so I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just trying to get it in my head that if somebody's got a fine for $200, what's the process of going through that? I mean, is there a cost to go through district court?
Sure. There are court costs associated with their appeal, if that's what they decide to employ. The commission, when you revised your code enforcement procedures in 2017, there was a robust discussion about how appeals should be handled. Some cities create their own hearing boards. This commission, at that time, decided they wanted no part of that, to simply defer it to district court, more efficient, due process could be more fairly ensured, and let the district court handle any appeals of the code enforcement citations.
But in this case, unless somebody just wants to force it on principle, they're going to lose money. They're going to pay a fine, and they're going to pay out-of-pocket costs plus any time off from work. I'm just simply stating how this translates.
Well, it would be no different than if you got a ticket for running a red light.
That's right.
You would appeal it
But
in the same manner.
if I run a red light, yeah, it's the same thing. I get it. I get it.
It's your choice whether you contest it or not.
That's right.
Right.
It is. But understand, if you contest it, you're still going to end up in the hole.
But it doesn't necessarily stop activity. I mean, speed limits don't stop speeders. You just have a way to enforce it. And that's what this is. So if someone is in the cemetery with a dog not on a leash, or someone sees them not picking up the waste from the dog, then it should be reported to codes. Codes, I guess, follow their process, and then someone would be served with a citation at some point in time.
So let me play that further, because let's say, well, we're in discussion. So let's say that Commissioner Holland sees me with the dog not on the leash, and she calls codes or 238-1200. 238-1200, 238-1220. And she says, I want to report Mayor Paris has a dog, and he needs to be cited. So she approaches me. I'm no longer in the cemetery. She approaches me and she said, I understand you had a dog. I'm going to cite you. And she writes me out a $100 ticket.
Well, that couldn't happen exactly like that.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at. Go ahead.
So in the event that the code enforcement officer has to witness the violation,
Right.
he or she cannot take it upon the testimony of just
Right.
a call.
Right. And the chances of that are happening are slim to none, unless she
Well,
just happens to be up
upon
there.
that fact pattern, yes.
Yeah.
However, if the cemetery was regularly patrolled by code enforcement, then it's, by being visually present in the cemeteries, it's possible that it could deter activity. I mean, I'm
Or
just
they have a
saying.
lot of, this is kind of like, for me, this is like the fireworks ordinance. It didn't keep anybody from shooting their fireworks in their backyard. But what it did was allow the police to go and say, hey, we have an ordinance, that's against our ordinance if it's after this time or this day. Is that fair?
It is fair.
People are still shooting fireworks. It's just,
Is it fair for
if
me to
it-
call for the question, though? on
if
this
they
item?
have complaints, then the police can say, hey, you shouldn't do that.
Mr. Mayor, I call for the question.
He called for the
I'd like to call for the question. Wait, she gotta read it first, don't you?
I need to read
She
it.
gotta read it.
This is the first reading of ordinance number 1979, an ordinance amending the fine schedule in the City of Danville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Section 1-12E pertaining to code enforcement so as to allow citations for violations of Chapter 5 cemeteries. Commissioner Terry?
Yes.
Mayor Paris?
Yes.
Commissioner Holland?
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, item 9 is the resolution 2021-10-11-02. This is the amendment for the cemetery rules and regulations.
Mayor, I'd ask that you entertain a motion to table that as well as it complements previous item number 7.
So moved to table.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Item 10 is the first reading of ordinance number 1980. This is the creation of the Martin Luther King Celebration Committee. Chair will entertain a motion for the first reading.
I'll move to approve the first reading of orders number 1980.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Hall, thank you, ma'am. If we're in discussion, anything you want to talk about, Commissioner Atkins?
They've had 2 meetings, and they reviewed the ordinance tonight, and they're well on their way to planning something for us for January 17th, 2022.
Do we need to actually appoint people after we do this? It
You
seems-
will. You will.
Yeah, we
So
will.
the actual committee members will be appointed after the creation of the ordinance,
Okay.
which could or could not be the people that are participating in the initial kind of foundational formation of the committee.
Right, I did want to get the cart before the horse, and if they're already meeting, then we kind
They
of,
have had organizational meetings to help develop the ordinance that is prepared before you and develop the content that was necessary to make it a formal standing committee. So when the commission decided and provided instruction to proceed in this manner with the creation of the ordinance, then individuals began to get together to decide what that mission should look like, which gave me the language necessary to create the ordinance.
Any further questions? Seeing none, Chair will call the question. All in favor, I'm sorry. Madam Clerk?
This is the first reading of ordinance number 1980, an ordinance establishing the Martin Luther King Jr. Day Celebration Committee in the City of Danville Code of Ordinances in Chapter 2 Administration, Article 5 Boards, Commissions, and Agendas, agencies, as Division 7 therein. Mayor Paris?
Yes.
Commissioner Holland?
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins?
Let me make a statement before I vote. They've been preparing a proposal to bring to us, hopefully for the next meeting, after we do the second reading, hopefully, and then they'll make a presentation to us to move their proposal forward for January 2022. So yes, ma'am, I vote in favor.
Commissioner Terry?
yes.
I would also anticipate that at the next meeting for the second reading, that there be proposed appointments and terms on that agenda, just so as a notation, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, sir. Item 11, City Manager Report. Mr. Coffey.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. We really don't have a update of anything in particular other than would like to acknowledge the progress that we see on the fire station next door and feel like they're making good progress with the weather that they've had here lately. And then would ask you if you have any questions. We're available.
Anything? Then we'll move into, anything else, Earl?
No, sir, not tonight.
Then we'll move into hear the public. This is the section where the public can bring any topic on their mind that is not on tonight's agenda. Are there any takers, Ms. Calhoun?
I already talked to Josh.
Okay.
I showed him the pictures down at the park, Michael M. Smith Memorial Park.
Oh,
Things need to be done, and,
always a pleasure to have you.
yeah. And I keep the cemetery clean myself. I pick up the flowers and put them on somebody else's headstone, because I don't know where they go, and I tell them, if you didn't have one, you got one now.
Right.
That's why she don't see nothing messed up, but the yard crew turns over them headstones and break them up. I got a picture of one I just showed Miss Lewis.
Right.
They need to be more careful, and then some headstones are leaning and need to be straightened up.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other comments from anyone? Then we'll move into commissioner comments. Who would like to go first?
Do you want to go first, J.H.?
I don't have to go at all.
I'll go first. There's a lot going on in October. So, the farmer's market's going to have a fall festival this coming Saturday with some extra activities. And last week was a very successful job fair, so I just wanted to give a shout out to the EDP Workforce Development and Chamber of Commerce. Stopped by there, and it was good to see on a nice day. Filling some jobs. Next week is the Bourbon Chase. This weekend is the Bourbon Chase. And, of course, 3,000 to 4,000 people, I think it said, in 6 hours. So I know a lot of our downtown businesses are very excited about that. The only other comment, we have a citizen doing a yard sale campaign to kindly promote vaccination. So if anyone would like a yard sign, you could email me and I'll get you in touch with the organizer. And that is all.
Good. Thank you, ma'am.
Sale.
Yard sign.
Sign, okay, all right. I got mine, okay. I
Yes.
thought you, okay, I said, what are you talking about, sale? Okay.
Mr. Atkins, you got anything?
Well, no, I just want to thank the city employees because they're still doing an excellent job. As the numbers went up, now they come back down, but city employees are still doing a great job. And then we have a city commissioner that just celebrated her 21st birthday last weekend, I guess, and I found out about it after the fact, so I sent one of those happy belated birthday ugly messages to her, but happy belated birthday to City Commissioner.
Speaking of employees, I had asked you, Mr. Coffey, about doing something to show our appreciation to the employees because they have been working just as hard as everyone else in keeping our water and sewer and city hall and fire and police going for the last almost 2 years now with this COVID-19, as they always do. But our city employees have gone above and beyond, and they need some appreciation and some love for that. So I just wanted you to keep that top of your list.
Earl, if you would, briefly share with the commission what you shared with me as far as we'll call it a newsletter, for lack of a better term, and where you intend to go with that.
Thank you. If we're going to, well, we did really a first edition, and it turned out to be 16 pages, and the more we work on it, as we talk to other staff members, what we're aligning ourselves with is doing stories that are very simple, not doing a real specific newsletter per se, but doing some type of mailing, like maybe even a postcard with an acknowledgement to all the stories or all the activities, very brief, and then link to the website, something much more economical to distribute. Then ensuring that we're active with our publications online in different locations, including our website and social media. And so that's the direction we're headed right now. But we'll try to give you some sort of update on that in the next meeting. We should be able to consolidate and show you what that looks like soon. We're working on stories. So for an example, you may have noticed the Parks and Recreation video last week online on Facebook talking about the applications for sports. That's for basketball, signups for basketball. That's one of our most viewed videos, believe it or not. And so what we'd like to do is lean into that social media aspect and really try to promote ourselves in that way also. And so that's the beginning, and really we hope to do more, and we'll follow up with that soon, hopefully by the next meeting, like I said, to show you an example of what we're talking about.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere, as a newcomer in town, they want to know what's going on? Is there anywhere they go to for calendar of events like what you just talked about in terms of activities?
Right, and so that's one of the things we'd like to
Add
do
that in?
on that. That's exactly
Yeah.
one. So one of the examples, the airport, y'all may have gotten emails on the airport's newsletter. If you'll notice at the bottom of that, it's just a list of calendar events for the airport. We want to do just a similar list, for example, for ours as well. But again, we want to condense it to something that's not a multi-page or 8.5 by 11
Right.
multi-step process to get it published. We want a simple link or highlight of the stories on a postcard style distribution, and hopefully that's effective enough. Yep.
Excellent. And finally, I want to sincerely thank my fellow commissioners and staff for a very, very nice what am I trying to say? Candle in a lantern type thing for my mother's funeral last Thursday, and I just thank you all for that. Thanks, staff.
And Mr. Mayor, you want to mention the ribbon cutting ceremony that we were all invited to?
I'd be delighted to. BCTC had a ribbon cutting open house last Tuesday. Rick Girdler was there, Daniel Elliott was there, the CFO was there,
The governor was there.
began with a Z. Dr. Kopko that was there. The current president was there, Aaron Tipton, and Judge Hunt, myself, and a student. That was the program, if you will.
You left out the governor, didn't you?
Oh, I did leave out the governor.
My friend, the governor.
I did leave out that was not by design.
Okay.
But I thought it was I thought we showed ourselves very well. I didn't see any of the TV clips, but
They made the TV. Saw 'em on TV.
but I do think we have a jewel of a facility out here that is very much underappreciated for the resource that it is. If you haven't seen it, I would say just call out there. They'd be glad to tour you through it. It's pretty remarkable right here in our backyard.
And then I want to remind the commission that we have a workshop scheduled for this coming Wednesday at 11:30 here at City Hall.
And the topic is?
It is not 11:30. 10 o'clock, right?
Right.
Yeah.
10 to noon.
I tried.
We might be out of here by 11:30.
And the topic is?
It's board training.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and starting Monday is Pints for Pets to benefit the Humane Society. If you go to their Facebook page, there's events every day during the week downtown Danville live music, a walk, so
Excellent.
check it out, a good fundraiser.
And you get that information where?
I would go to the Boyle County Humane Society page.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
She said a
Good,
lot- said a
good
lot was going
content.
on, didn't you?
Anything else? Seeing none, we'll move into item 12, the payment of the bills. Chair will entertain a motion for the payment of the bills.
I'll move to pay the October the 12th, 2021 bill list totaling $228,398.79.
There was a 1 in front of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
$1,228,398. Says, that's not bigger than my bank account. I couldn't read that number, so.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of payment of the bills, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion will carry. Item 13, this is resolution number 2021-10-11-03. This is change order number 1 to the elevated tank and booster pump out on Perrival Road. Mr. Marshall Carrier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is in regards to lettering being put on the new tower that we have built, recently constructed on Tuckle Road. Most people traveling along 150 between here and Perrival are well aware of the new water tower that's under construction right now. We still anticipate being done in January completely and have it filled with water and in operation, but the painting is ongoing right now. And that being said, as with most paint applications, there's certain times that you can go and do additional work, like additional lettering on the tower. So that's what we're looking at right here. This is in regards to adding both a eastbound and a westbound facing logos on the tank. And this is the perfect time to do that. The paint people are on site, and it's a lot easier to have those folks do it while they're on site as opposed to having another contractor come in later.
And so this request is an additional $14,375?
Yes, sir, in a additional week of time.
Do I hear a motion to that effect?
I move to pass resolution 2021-10-11-03, change order number 1 is presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Is there a second? Mr. Holland, thank you, ma'am. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 14 is resolution number 2021-10-11-04. This is a ordinance and fee with regards to stormwater. Mr. Morgan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. One of the items that was communicated to us by the Division of Water during our last stormwater annual report that we need to improve upon is our current stormwater ordinances and our stormwater manual that developers use to do their stormwater design of their projects. We reached out, those ordinances in the stormwater manual were created in around 2005, 2006, and our permit language has changed significantly since that time. So we need to update all of our documents to match the current permit that we have with the state. I reached out to Strand Associates. They're an engineering firm that we use for stormwater work. They've done this type of work for other communities that have to meet these same permit standards. And they provided a fee to us, a total fee of $29,825 to assist us with rewriting the ordinances in the stormwater manual. These funds were anticipated, weren't included, and they were included in the engineering capital line item in the stormwater budget.
Do we hear a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution 2021-10-1104.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Terry, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Item 15 is the code enforcement report. Ms. Lester?
Good evening.
Good evening.
You have before you the report for the month of September. We issued, we didn't have the number for August, so we added that to this. We had 24 business licenses issued in August and 27 in September for a total of 51 for those 2 months. We issued 21 liens, 76 parking citations, and we had a total of 130 inspections, violations, and complaints that were addressed. The next page is our condemned properties list. If you go to the second page there, number 7 is one of the properties we had talked about several times at the commission meeting, which was 1020 East Main Street. So I gave you some pictures of those so you could review, but also a copy of the email from the property owner that's been communicating with Officer Young about the progress of that. So they're going to be rebuilding that. They finally got the insurance settled, and so
good.
there should be some progress starting in the next week or two on that. And then also, if you go to number 11, I gave you pictures of the property at 110 Stanford Avenue that had the fire at it, so you can see the damage done there. So Officer Young is working on that to try to get that issue resolved. And then number 12 is an example of the teamwork that we have here at Danville. This was a property that is in the historic district that we had a sudden issue with. It was purchased by a new owner who we contacted. We had water running through the ceiling. It was imminent danger there for everyone in there. There's 6 to 8 apartments in there. So we were able to work with the property owner, the fire department, the police department, and codes to get that property resolved very quickly. Residents were out for a couple of weeks, but the property owner worked with the residents to find them other places to stay in that period of time. And that has now been fixed and is now off the condemnation list. So we want to say thank you to the fire department, police department, everyone who was involved in that, as well as Officer Young and Officer Wesley, who worked very closely with those people to make sure that they were safe and everything was taken care of so that they could get back into that area and be safe. You also have Joni's report from the Architectural Heritage Board meeting. She came to the last meeting. We also had a training from the Heritage Council, which I emailed out to you all just so you could see on the certified local government. If you haven't had time to review that, that's also on our website and our Facebook page if the public would like to see that. She also attended a meeting with Mayor Paris on the William Crow House and did several site visits. Also, in regards to the other conversation we have some exciting things coming with what we were talking about earlier in notifying citizens and stuff. One of the new things coming with the new website is notifications. So when we post stuff on our website, the public will be able to sign up for those notifications. So that will be one of the exciting things coming when the new website gets put in place. And any of these stories and stuff that you all have that you know about, if you'll let Ashley know about them, we can get those posted on our website or on our Facebook page to let the citizens know about those as well. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Ms. Bridget, do you know how many units were in that 1020 East Main Street?
How many what, I'm sorry?
How many apartments, how many units?
I do not
Back on?
know for sure. I can find out and get back to you.
Okay, that's all right. That's going to be great to get those back up and running.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just taken a long time to get that settled with the insurance company.
Oh, I understand, I know, yeah, but it's great, that'll be great, yeah.
You know, I've talked a little bit about this, Bridget. I've spent a little time with CVB, and one of their challenges is identification of all the bed and breakfasts, VRBOs, whatever. Are we working with them? How do we find out who's doing that enterprise?
It's a tremendous challenge. If someone, I talked to Mr. McCroskey about that, but if someone comes in and says they're in rentals, we can ask an additional question, but they don't always. And we exempt one rental under our occupational ordinance. So if you're only doing one, we wouldn't gather that information because we wouldn't have to fill out an application for a business license. It's only if you have that second rental that we do not exempt. But we're going to start asking those additional questions. You know, if it's less than 30 days, then it would be subject to the transient tax. If it's more than that, then it would not. But it's very difficult to go onto their website and find out where a property is. So a lot of times on the Airbnbs or the VRBOs, you got to go all the way through the process and put the deposit down before they'll tell you where the location is. So it's something we've worked with the county and with CBB on in the past, trying to come up with a way to resolve this issue, but it's a challenge. Now, some communities have ordinances in place. They've had some agreements with Airbnbs and stuff, but it goes under the planning and zoning ordinance too as to how they're zoned as well, so.
We don't really have a lot of language that actually addresses short-term rentals.
No, we do not.
Is that correct? Yeah. So technically, they're not legal or illegal.
I think I'll let CVB speak for themselves at some time if they want to go down this road. Anything else? Thank you, Bridget. That brings us to the end of our agenda. Do we have need for executive session
Personnel.
for personnel? Chair will entertain a motion to that effect.
I will move that we go into executive session to discuss personnel matters pursuant to KRS 61-810-1F.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Second?
Second.
Mr. Holland, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. What about it, Mr. Atkins? Need a vote?
Oh, no? He can't get it done in 5 minutes.
We are in executive session.
Thank you.
Motion, we move back into regular session.
So moved.
Mr. Terry, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Holland, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are in executive session. I'm sorry, regular session, whatever. Mr. Coffey.
Thank you, Mayor Commissioners. We have a recommendation. Staff is recommending the hiring of Jason Simpson to the position of network technician.
Do you hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Jenny Holland, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Continue on, sir.
Thank you. Staff has a recommendation to hiring Dallas Conger to the position of electrician for the utility.
So moved.
Mr. Terry, thanks.
Second.
Commissioner Holland, thank you, ma'am. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Anything else, sir?
No, sir. Thank you all.
With that, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Everybody have a good evening.